What is happening, people? It is Brian Alsruhe with NEVERsate.com, and today we're going to answer that age-old question: are you performing the single arm row correctly? And yeah, the reason why I'm saying single arm row instead of dumbbell rows, because you can be using a kettlebell, you can be using a circus dumbbell, you can be using absolutely anything you want. A lot of times we do single arm barbell rows, and a lot of times we use the single arm whatever row in form of like a pinch block or another grip related implement. And before I forget, because I most likely will, these shirts, these green NEVERsate shirts with diameter on the back, all of these are going on some sort of sale over at lowbrand.com to make room. They've sold really, really well, so we're just trying to get rid of the rest of the stock. I think there might be like 50 or 60 left. So if you guys do want to pick one up for a cool thing that may or may not happen on St. Patrick's Day, then definitely do that. Link below, and thank you as always. And now back to the single arm row, and there are so many benefits to doing this movement. You have to think about it. It does a ton to build your lats and your upper back, and if you have a stronger lat and upper back foundation, then it will literally help all four of your lifts. If you want a bigger deadlift, a squat, an overhead press, or a bench, a bigger and stronger upper back and lat area will help all of those movements go up, on top of the fact that it's going to start balancing you out and fixing that posture, because we're all a little guilty of this. They will also help fix some of that muscle imbalance from spending all those years in high school doing absolutely nothing but benching. Yeah, me too. First step is admitting you have a problem. And finally, it is an amazing way to work your grip. Like I mentioned earlier, you can hook up all types of different grip implements to a kettlebell or a dumbbell. There is literally a veritable cornucopia of different things that you can get that are hard to hold on to, that you can add to your rows to make them more challenging, and you're killing two birds with one stone. Now, that is also important because the dumbbell, single arm row, whatever you want to call it, is so versatile that you can throw it in virtually anywhere. I do some sort of rowing virtually every single time that I'm in the gym, and I 100% contribute that to a lot of my current strength. It's because all of this is a lot stronger than all of this, and that's helped me in my strongman career, powerlifting stuff, in absolutely everything. It just keeps me safer and better. So maybe on your lighter days, you can grab a different implement so you can actually be working your grip at the same time that you're working your back, and different stimulus works every day. It's all good things. Just do them. Do a lot of single arm rows. Thanks. But the problem is that a lot of people are doing the single arm row incorrectly. No, there are about 8 billion single arm row variations. There are two main ones I just want to talk about, and we're going to focus on the dumbbell for today just because I know all of you, virtually all of you, have access to a dumbbell for a single arm dumbbell row. So two variations that I'm going to focus on today. There are some common things that we need to look at that I'm just going to speak about so we don't need to cover it twice. The first of which being that you need a flat back. Now, a lot of people screw this up by having a cat back, or they will be completely contorted sideways, or whatever they're going to do. And by the way, while we're at it, I do not like the dumbbell row on top of a bench. I think you're much better off standing. God gave you two legs, you should be standing on them. Plus, the balance and carryover is going to mean a lot more for being athletic as well as transferring power. Now, if you watch 10,000 people do a single arm dumbbell row, you will get 10,000 different back positionings, and what you choose to do there is up to you. You can increase the range of motion, you can back off the range of motion. There are a ton of different things that are going to do, but the one thing that I do want you to keep in mind is to keep that spine nice and flat, all right? So there's a lot of people talk about sticking your butt up and chest out and all those things. Don't worry about that. All I want you to do, since you are still going to be breathing and bracing for this exercise because you are still in a compromised position, once you get that breathing and you brace it down, once you are set, I want you to think about bending over the same way that you would in a deadlift or a stiff-legged deadlift or an RDL, right? You're bending over, you're supporting yourself with your one hand, the other hand is going to be doing the rowing. However, your back is going to be in that deadlift position. Now, we're going to be manipulating your legs, but your back should be in that same basic position. Set that position, then change your legs. That will keep you safe. The second point I already briefly mentioned, and that is about the breathing and bracing. You need to treat this exercise just like it is a squat or a deadlift. It is very, very serious, especially since you're in that compromised, potentially spine twisty situation, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should be trying to twist your spine when you're doing it, unless you are doing that intentionally for something like a croc row or as many reps as possible type of thing, but that's not for the most part what we're talking about here. You want to keep a good flat back the entire time and actually focus on the muscles that you're supposed to be using. So what I do during my breathing and bracing is that I get my air, then I grab the dumbbell, and then I get as many reps as I can on that first breath while I am slowly exhaling. And we are talking like a right while I'm repping out. It's just like air slowly escaping out of balloon, just going slowly, slowly. It is very similar to if you are involved in strongman or you have done a weighted carry before. You're trying to hold that brace because something very heavy, you need to stay braced in a carrying position, and you just need to let that air out super, super slowly. And then once you run out of air, you need to take short little choppy breaths or do whatever you need to do to remain the rest of the set still conscious and moving that weight. So I treat the dumbbell row virtually the exact same way. The third common thing that I want to talk to you guys about is not disengaging your shoulder completely. Now, what I'm talking about with this is a lot of people, when they bend over and have a weight in their hand, they like to completely relax their shoulders so that it almost like dislocates. Don't do that. I know there are varying opinions, and some people are like, oh, you need to get a stretch and what. Look, I've hurt my shoulder many times in the past by sticking it in that compromised position and then trying to yank weight on it. Don't do that. If I were you and you were me, which we are not, but I would rather you take my advice than spend some time with a hurt shoulder, keep that shoulder blade back and engaged the entire time. Plus, keeping a flat back, that's going to be a lot easier if you are engaged in the upper back rhomboid area and you're going to already be feeling that muscle a little bit more. It is all positive things. Do not let that shoulder stretch out and kind of hang there like a piece of dead meat, or else, trust me, it'll listen. Which actually finally brings us to the first variation of the dumbbell row, and this one is gonna be all focused on your lat. Now, for that reason, this looks a lot different than many people form their dumbbell rows, and I've had people come up to me and be like, they are doing that wrong. They are not doing it wrong. There is not really, well, there are plenty of wrong ways to do exercises. However, different strokes for different folks, people. Like, you need to kind of look at body types and different things. So also, if someone is performing a dumbbell row in this fashion, it's just how they were taught or how they learned online or whatever. So it's not wrong, just let them do their thing, you do your thing, it's all gonna be okay. But if by chance you do see someone doing a row and their elbow is kind of shooting backwards, they're just trying to focus more on their lat rather than their upper back rhomboid kind of area. When I'm doing this, the biggest cue that I think about is taking my ring finger on the dumbbell and rowing it towards my hip bone. Now, it's very important to note here that during any row, I want you to be thinking of your hands as nothing more than meat hooks. I want you to pull virtually from your elbow. I know it sounds strange, but for everyone who has understood this and does this, pulling from your elbow, just think of it in your mind, pull from your elbow, and you'll get more back and lat and rhomboid activation doing it that way. Now, even though your hand is still meat hook, you can still focus where the most pressure on that little dumbbell bar is, and I want you to stick it on that ring finger, and then I want you to take that ring finger and try to put it on your hip bone. Now, for many of you, this is gonna make your arm track in a different sort of way, so be careful on the weight at first, but you're immediately gonna notice that you're gonna feel more of the activation on your lat versus your rhomboid upper back area. Another helpful tip here is that if you wanna get a little bit of stretch in your lat, so maybe you can get a little bit more muscle-mind connection going on, all I want you to do is stretch your body out a little bit further by taking the same leg that you were rowing with and dropping it back a little bit further. That's just slightly gonna change the angle in which your arm is hanging, which is gonna get a little more stretch on that lat, which will hopefully help you out. Either way, on both these variations, the final thing that I want you to do at the top of that row when you are finishing it is flipping your elbow back towards your spine. Just a little motion right at the very end. As you finish that row, the last little bit is your elbow tucking towards your spine, and then you control that weight back down. And that is a very basic idea of what I want you to do if you're trying to do the dumbbell row for your lats. Now, if you're moving on to more of your upper back rhomboid area, I want you to change your positioning a decent amount. The first thing you're gonna do is bring that back leg in a little bit more because you can support more weight there. Like I mentioned, this particular row is gonna focus more on your rhomboids, and even if you flip the dumbbell to the side, you can even hit a decent amount of your rear delt. However, for today's variation, since we're gonna keep it simple, we're gonna keep that elbow tucked in, and we're just doing a normal dumbbell row with this. Now, the first thing that I want you to do is take that middle finger and stick it on that dumbbell. Now, when you are rowing up, your body is gonna be more at a flat tabletop type of position as opposed to if you were working your lat where you're gonna have a little bit more slant. So, your body is up in tabletop position. As you row up, I want you to take that middle finger on the bar of the dumbbell and try to pull it up to like the bottom of your pec line. Now, you notice it is a much different finishing position than if you're working on your lat, and the reason why is when you're at the top of that position, I want you to focus on almost a playing card sitting between your shoulder blades, and you're trying to pinch it together. As far as performance go, I actually like these more than the lat variation because I think as far as moving big heavy things, especially quickly, a big back, like heavy rhomboid area is much more effective than big lats. However, you do you. And of course, the very last thing, like I mentioned in the last variation, is you're gonna finish with that elbow just popping right towards your spine. Between figuring out the finger thing and doing that little elbow pop at the end, it's gonna make a world of difference on your rows. Give it a try. Finally, to finish up the video, a lot of people ask me whether they should be pausing their dumbbell rows. Now, I think there should be an absolute definite pause on every single dumbbell row unless you're intentionally going for like as many reps as possible in a croc row or some other form like that. But if you're doing it for strength purposes or hypertrophy purposes, I'm trying to fix that word, guys, thank you. But either of those purposes, I think you absolutely should have a little bit of a pause. Now, that pause does not need to be perceptible to anyone except you. And we're not talking about that like gravity pause where you have enough force to pull up, you get that little weightless moment, and then it goes back down. That's not the pause that we're talking about. What I am talking about is when you're at the top of that movement, you get a little bit of muscle contraction where you hold it for a split second and then it goes back down. But again, some people like to hold it for a long, very big pause, and other people like to just hold it for a second. That would not be noticeable to anyone but themselves. Whatever you choose to do depends on what you're working, but I think there should be a definite recognition of a start and an end every single rep on the dumbbell row, so you're not just trying to start a rusty lawnmower. And the last but controversial thing are people ask me if they can use straps. Now, I am not a fan of straps on any type of row unless it is a really heavy double overhand row where you're not gonna be able to control the force of when that bar comes down and reversing it, whatever, right? So I like using straps on things like that. However, for a dumbbell row, I would stay away from it unless it is something intentional like a croc row or as many reps as possible set, if you're intentionally putting yourself through that. However, I think you should always be working your grip without straps, but if you're working in other ways, I will say that putting on a pair of straps so you don't need to focus so much about holding onto the bar, that allows you to really focus on getting that finger type of thing. If you're working for your lat, using your ring finger. If you're working for your rhomboids, using your middle finger, you'll be able to get that a lot more and really feel your back activate more with a pair of straps on versus without the straps where you actually have to focus on squeezing that dumbbell because maybe it's too heavy for you to actually hold on to. So if you're new to the game and you don't really feel your back activate that well, I would highly encourage that you use straps from time to time, but do not rely on them. Remember, they're a tool for your learning. But just like anything else, if it becomes a crutch and you become lazy and rely on it, then it is no good at all. So guys, there you go. Hopefully you guys have a better idea of how to correctly do the dumbbell row for whatever you're trying to work it towards, and maybe now you have some benefits for why you should actually be doing it. I enjoy making these videos so much, guys. I hope you guys enjoy watching them. Remember, if you guys do want to pick up one of these shirts, there's only a couple left. We will not be putting them back out. So if you want one for St. Patrick's Day, so you do not get pinched or punched or whatever your friends do to you, then I pick one up in the description link down below. Other than that, guys, I'm so stoked for 2019. I hope everything goes amazing for you guys. Hope you guys are out there crushing it. I will catch up with you later in the week. Until I do, go out, do something amazing with your lives. Keep working hard, people. Be nice to each other, please. And I'll see you then.